Hi everyone. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. So I'll just wait for a couple of minutes. Let everyone come in and then I'll start with today's session.
I have a couple of questions. Shall we proceed after everybody gets in, or
No,
shall
sure.
we?
Let's begin with your questions.
Pardon?
No, let's start with your questions.
Yeah.
Till the time all of them join.
Yeah. Yesterday we have seen the user creation screen, and there is a deletion. I saw the deletion. I was wondering earlier R12 and other things. I never see any deletion on the user because of audit purpose and other things.
Right.
Is it? Yeah. So that's only end date or something, but not deletion. I was wondering, is it valid option in that?
So this user account deletion. So
Uh,
let's say when we hire an employee, after once we hire an employee, we can never delete that employee from the Fusion system. Like we can terminate that employee so that the record is not visible in front end, but then that employee's data entry always remains in the Fusion's tables, right? But the case is different with user accounts. Now, let's say we have created a user account, we can
mhm.
completely delete that user account. We have that option to delete it, and it will be deleted from all the Oracle tables and from backend as well. So it's different with employee hiring an employee case, and then this creating a user account case where we have the permanent delete option.
Okay, but previously I did some audit things like security purpose. They never delete. They simply disable. I mean, like end dates. Where
So no, with user account, we do not have this end date criteria, but we can lock it, right? So locking it is like disabling the user account. So once you either terminate an employee, you can lock it. And if you are expecting a future rehire or something, or if you are temporarily locking that employee's account, in that case, we can use the lock functionality, but we cannot end it the user account.
okay. And another question is, we have seen password. There are like rules like historical passwords not to use, or
Yeah, yeah.
kind of things. Those rules where we can define. Is there any provision we can have to define those things?
Yesterday we saw it in user categories, right? Okay, I'll
Right.
share my screen and I'll show you again. Is my screen visible?
Yeah.
Okay. So here in user categories, let's say we are just exploring the default category right now. And in password policy, if we see, we have this password complexity wherein we can choose which complexity we want. And then here we have disallow last password, right?
Okay.
So if we tick this and if you enter the last use password, then it will throw an error.
Okay. My requirements say example like the past password, like last password is having 12 digits, I say, and current password is also having 12, more than 12 or something. But first 8 digits I want to restrict, which not supposed to match each other. Is there any provision?
So now here in case of like this level of customization in Fusion, that won't be possible. We only have this three predefined options and this one more disallow last password. Other than this, we do not have provision to customize like what you told.
Okay. And one more thing, like for the user creation, yesterday we have seen the last name dot first name or something.
Yeah,
And in that case, in the government projects, generally I saw some kind of CAC number, that is a security number of their access,
right,
that is
right,
embedded. But how to configure those kind of things?
right. So if we go in details, I'll show you. So here, if you see username generation rule, we have this criteria to select from email, F last name, or this person or party number. Now, this concept you will understand once we start with our global HR module. There is a concept called person number, assignment number, employee number, or this party number. So when we assign a number to that particular employee, we can use that unique number for as a username as well. So this is what many clients will use.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, got something information.
Okay.
Another thing is, yesterday you were talking about workflow notifications and other things.
Right.
So still cloud is using workflow or BPM?
So like right now, cloud is using both workflow as well as BPM. So BPM, we have like we can configure many complex scenarios. Some of like there is limitation with workflow, but there is no limitation to customization in BPM worklist.
Okay. So still workflow is available.
Yeah. We are using both because workflow is more friendly to implementers and as well as users, but BPM is slightly complex where we need to write queries and all. But level of customization is like it's immense in BPM.
Okay. Thank you. Those are the questions I have.
Okay. Anyone else who have question before we start today's session? Okay, so then let's start with today's session. So yesterday we saw how to create a user account. We assigned an employee role to that user. We then logged into that new user and saw how his access was created. Like we assigned only employee role, and then he was able to access only the me function, right? He was not able to see all the other functions which I am able to see from this account. Now this account is called like if we have all the implementation roles, all the managerial roles and all the admin roles, then we use a term super user. Like we can say that this account is a super user account because we have access to everything, right? So now today we'll go ahead and we'll start an in-depth concepts of roles, how the Fusion is configured to work with roles. So I'll open the Excel. So security administration. Now Fusion works on a concept called RBAC. This is role-based access control, right? So RBAC, this term means role-based access control. Now role-based access control, it means that we have to all the access which employees get or all the access which the users get is defined by certain roles, right? So that is why the name goes role-based access control. If we do not give a role to a particular user, he won't get access to what he wants, right? So that is the fundamental thing over here, that Fusion works on a technology called RBAC. Okay, so now roles, and why do we require customizing roles? Why can't we use directly the Oracle provided roles? Now Oracle has provided us with a lot of seeded roles. So the way to identify those roles which are provided by Oracle is that it should start with ORA as its prefix, right? So let's see it in the system. Again, we'll go to the function called tools and then sub function called security console. So yesterday we were working with this tab users and we worked with user categories tab. Today we will work with the roles tab, and you can search all the roles that are existing in the system over here in this search bar. So if I write ORA and then underscore, it will search us all the seeded roles which are present in the system. You see ORA hyphen underscore HER underscore academic, and similarly everywhere you can see ORA as a prefix. So this indicates that this is a Oracle seeded role. Right now, let's search for a simple employee role. All right. So here you are able to see ORA per employee abstract, right? This is the only employee role where we are able to see ORA as a prefix, right? If you see this, there is PER. So this, we cannot consider it as a seeded role. But here we are able to see ORA as a prefix. So this is a seeded employee standard role. Now, all this also has ORA in front of them, but they are not normal employee roles, right? Because here we have employee enrollment, here we have employee development manager. So the only role, the only normal employee role is this one, ORA per employee abstract, right? So let's go with this right now. Okay, we'll come back to this screen after understanding a slide, like having an understanding of theory of what types of roles are there in the system. So if we build a hierarchy of all the roles in the system, then the at a very minute level, we have a concept called privileges. After privileges, we have duty roles. After duty roles, we can say that there is no hierarchy as such, but we have abstract roles, we have data roles, and we have job roles, right? So now we'll understand what each and every one of this means. Now, privilege is just let's say we are on the system right now. I'll open a new tab. Let me go in my client group. I'll go in new person. Okay, so right now I am into my client groups and then new person. I'm able to see all this option, new person, dashboard, hire an employee, pending workers, etc. So how am I able to see this? That is because I have privilege to access this task. Now, this is at a very minute level, right? We are inside a function, inside a sub function, and then we are able to see these certain tasks. So if I want to hire an employee from my account, I will have to delete something called privilege, which gives me access to this hire an employee. So at the very minute level, we have privileges where we can hide or where we can show tasks. Okay, we are using privileges. We do not have option to like hide those functions or sub functions that we have to do at a higher level. But privileges is meant for this minute level of customization. Okay, so that is privileges. Now, duty roles, we can simply say that a group of privileges is called a duty role or duties. So as the name suggests, it gives you it is helpful to assign duties to employees. So what happens is inside new person, I saw that there were hire an employee, there was pending worker, then there was add a contingent worker option. So let's say this. Okay, I'll again open this one. Okay, so we have hire an employee, we have pending workers, we have add a contingent worker. Let's take example of these three. Now, let's say if there is any HR person or if there is any administrator, we always need to give access to hire an employee, pending worker, and add a contingent worker. These three are very common, and everyone should have access to this. Like if you have access to hire an employee, then you should also have access to pending workers and contingent worker as well. So what we can do is we can club these three privileges together, and we can create a role called like something called duty role, so wherein we can club privileges together. So duty role, it's just a like combination of a lot of privileges and assigning like let's say lump sum privileges at a go. Okay, so that is about duty role. Now extract role, abstract role. These are very high level roles, and I think in Fusion system we have two most important abstract roles which are delivered by Oracle itself. So one is employee role, the other one is line manager role, the next one is contingent worker. So out of this employee and line manager roles are quite important because and what does abstract role means? So these are generic roles which are predefined on the system and which any client will have to use at a very basic level. So let's say you are hiring an employee. Now system is configured in such a way that if you are hiring an employee, this employee abstract role which is delivered by Oracle, it will be auto assigned to that employee. Now let's say if you are making that employee a manager as well, so this line manager role, it will be assigned to that employee again by automatically. So abstract roles, they are a very high level roles and they are very in generic. As you can see, this is employee. Now this is a very general role, which I think almost each and every user will be using. Because if you are entering his or her data into the system, that means he's an employee of your company, right? So that is why this employee role, a very high level role. Again, line manager role, it goes with the same rule. Most of the employees would be manager or someone or the other, so they must have line manager role as well. So these two roles, they are very generic and they are very high level roles, which is assigned to almost every user in the system. So next comes data roles and job roles. Now we need to understand these two concepts in depth, and we need to understand this properly to understand the whole concept of this RBAC in Fusion, right? So a job, let's say we'll take an example. Let's say there is a Mr. A, and he should have access to terminate all the employees, right? Throughout the system, if let's say there are 100 employees belonging to different departments, different legislations, now he should be able to terminate all those employees. So now this termination access, to give the privilege to terminate employees, we have it in line manager role as well. So let's say if I assign line manager role to Mr. A, then he will be able to terminate employees. But in this case, what will happen is Mr. A will be able to terminate only those who are his subordinates. So let's say there is a Mr. A here, and then he is a manager of Mr. B and Mr. C, right? So A is manager of B and C, but he is not a manager of D and E. Okay. So what will happen when we assign line manager role to A? I'll write line manager here. So A has line manager role. So what will happen is he will be able to transact everything on B and C, including termination, which we are focusing here. So A will be able to terminate B, and A will also be able to terminate C. But now he won't be able to terminate D and E because he is not a line manager, and this D and E, they are not included into the manager hierarchy of A, right? So that is why A will not get access to terminate D and E. But our requirement is that A should be able to terminate everyone who is there in the system. Okay. So the next option, I'll copy this. So the next option at hand we have is, let's say we give a high level role. We give a role like HR HR manager. Okay. So now A has this role called HR manager. Now he will be able to terminate everyone. He will be able to terminate B, C, D, and E, irrespective of whether he is a manager or not, because HR manager is quite a high level role, which does not go with the manager hierarchy. So here the problem comes is that HR manager, as I said, it's a very high level role. So A will also get access to a lot of other things. Like let's say he will be able to see salaries of B, C, D, and E. But we do not want that, right? If A is manager of B and C, and if he is able to see salary of B and C, then that's okay. But he should not be able to see salaries of D and E. But the problem with HR manager role is that he will be also able to see salaries of D and E, which is not what we want, and which might be considered as a data breach in the system. So now we are left with the only option where we need to customize the role. So let's say here we have a custom role. Now what this custom role will include? This custom role will say that A has access to all the employees in the system, and specifically he has access to only terminating action of these employees, right? So that is why we'll have to build a custom role, and there is no other option if we want to achieve this kind of requirements. So this was just a scenario, and why do we need custom roles? Okay. Now this was based on the duties or the role that Mr. A has to do as an employee, right? He wants to terminate employees. He is responsible for terminating employees. So this was an action that Mr. A has to perform. Now we'll look at another scenario. Why is it not copying? Okay. So now let's say A, he is an HR manager. He is HR employee. Okay. So A is HR. Now B and C, both of this. So A is HR employee, and B and C, these two employees work in India, whereas D and E, they work in USA. Now A is a payroll manager of let's say he is a payroll manager in the system because he is an HR employee and he is responsible for the payroll kind of administration for all the employees. Now, okay, we'll take example. We'll have one more. So we have Mr. Y over here, who is HR head, right? He's the HR head for the whole organization, which operates in India as well as USA. Now, under Mr. Y, we have A, who is who should have access to B and C, who are working in India, right? So he is an HR employee. He should have access to payrolls of B and C because they are working in India. Now, next we have another employee. So this X, he should have access to, again, payroll, but only for D and E, right? Only for US and not for India. So the situation here is that A and X, both of them should have same access to the roles which they are going to perform. They are going to manage payrolls. I'll write payroll here for reference. So A and X, they are going to manage payroll of all the employees, but the difference comes in the excess of data which they have. A should be able to access only B and C because they are in India, and X should be able to access only D and E because they are in USA, right? So how are we going to suffice this requirement? Now here in this requirement, in the previous case which we discussed, we'll just create a custom role and add that privileges and delete other privileges so that A has access to only termination. But here there was no restriction to data access, right? We told that he should be able to access each and every employee. But now here we want to restrict A to see India's data and X to see US's data. So this is where the data role concept comes in, data role, right? So what happens is, let's say we create a custom role. And we'll give privileges for payrolls and every other task which A and X should be able to access. And on top of this custom role, we'll create a data role. Let's say we name it data role India, and the another role we'll name it as data role USA. Okay. So what we can do is we can create one custom job role, and then we can create two custom data roles, India and USA. So in job role, we'll have the same things, right? Same privileges, because A and X, they are both on the same position, that is in HR team, and they are responsible for managing payrolls. So job role will be common. We'll have all the privileges added. We will have unnecessary privileges and duties removed from that role. But now when we are creating a data role, what we can do is we can create two separate data roles, a data role India and data role USA. Now inside this data role India, we will inherit this job role, this custom job role which we have created. We will inherit this job role into this data role India, and then we on in data role we have ability to restrict user data which they are able to see, right? So we'll say that this data role should be able to see only India data, and this data role should be able to see only USA data. But then they have already inherited the job role which we created, the custom role which we created. So this data role will have all the privileges that we defined in our custom role, along with limitations to data which they are able to see, right? And same way here, data role USA, it will have access to all the privileges and duties which we created in this custom role. But on top of it, it will have limitation to the USA region which X should be able to see. Now coming to the assignment of roles to A and X, uh, there is generally two practices which we can follow to assign A and X the roles. Let's say A and X. So what we can do is we can directly assign this custom data role India and this data role USA to X. We need not necessarily assign this custom job role which we created to A and X, because that job role is already inherited in data role, right? So we do not specifically need to assign that custom role. But a general practice says that we also assign a second role as our job role over here in both the places, right? So we assign our custom job role to A, and then on top of it, we assign this data role India to A, so that the data gets restricted. So this is how we follow. We in general cases, I have seen that people follow both the practices. It again depends on clients, how clean they want to keep the system or how understandable they want to keep. If they say that only data role will work, then we can go with assigning only data role India to A, and it will create no difference if we assign custom job role or not, because it's already inherited over here, right? So this was the concept of job roles and data roles. Guys, any doubt? This is very important. It's very important that you clear this concept in your heads, so that you can understand rest of the security administration. Okay, so I'll take it as a no. So we saw that we have total 4 types of roles in system: duty roles, abstract roles, data roles, and job roles. Okay. Privileges we do not consider as a type of role, but it is a very minute form of the role wherein we have access to individual things, right? Okay, so now let's move on to system, and we'll see how the right now we'll work on this ORA per employee abstract role, and we'll see what all things come into this role. You can click on this arrow mark. Here we'll select the option edit role. We'll discuss all these options later on, but right now we'll go in edit role. Okay, so we are on the screen. On this first screen, we have basic information. What we are able to see is role name. We are able to see role code. We are able to see role category. So in Fusion, let's say you create a new role, you create a new custom role. Now, once you save and close this on summary page, you will be able to see save and close button and the final step to create a role. Now, once you click that save and close button and the role is created in the system, you can never delete it from a Fusion again, right? So this is what the limitation is. That is why you need to be careful while creating roles, that if you create a role, then you won't be able to delete it. So the only option that we have is what we can do is we can edit this role name, and instead of employee, what we can give this role name as do not use this role, or this role is obsolete or something. You will be able to edit the role name, but you won't be able to edit the role code. So this will remain as it is, but what you can do is you can change the role name to do not use, or this role is obsolete, if you do not want to, like if you no longer want to use that role. Okay. Next comes role code. So this is just a unique identification of the role that we have created, employee role, and it has its unique code. This cannot be repeated in the system. Okay. This is role category, HCM abstract roles. I'll open a new screen and I'll go where these fields are empty. Okay, so I am back on the roles tab. This time, last time we searched for employee role and we clicked on edit role to go inside the role. This time I don't want any role. I just want to create a new role. So I'll click on this button, create role. Okay, so here you can give your own role name, then role code will be generated automatically. Let's say we are giving demo employee role version 1. Okay. Okay, so right now it's not generating, but ideally what should happen is this will come in caps lock, dummy hyphen employee underscore role underscore version A. Now, this is how we generally give role codes, that whatever is the role name, we capitalize it, and we, instead of spaces, we use underscore in between in role code. So this is a general practice which Fusion automatically populates here, but it did not populate right now. So this is how we use roll code, but you are free to use any other format according to client's requirement or according to your comfort. Okay. So next we have this role category. Now in the employee abstract role, which is delivered by Oracle, we are able to see role category as HCM hyphen abstract roles. Okay. So if I click on this, we have a lot of other role categories which are there. We will particularly focus on HCM, abstract role, duty role, and job role. Now this field, role category, is just a for your information field. There is no impact of anything in while creating a role. So let's say if you select let's say we select something else, we select supply chain management abstract role, and then we create a role which is to be used in HCM, it won't have any impact, right? So here we select HCM abstract role, duty role, or job role, just for our understanding purpose. Let's say you configured all these roles, and after you, some other consultant comes into the client's work area, and then he wants to do something, or there is some bug in this role. So whenever he comes into this role to edit this role, he'll be able to know that this role category is HCM job roles. So he will know that this role is used in HCM module and not in any other module, right? So this is just for our information and for our reference category, role category, right? So next, we have this predefined role. Now this predefined role is tick marked because this is delivered by Oracle. We cannot like See, it's not giving us option to tick or untick over here, because definitely this is not a Oracle seeded rule. This is what we are creating, right? Now, next, we have this concept called enable role for access from all IP addresses. Now, this is related to what technicals networking people do for all IP addresses. If your Fusion system is to be accessed from a lot of addresses, then we need to configure this as well. But this is not directly configured from here. We need other technical tools to configure this, because this relates to the network on which clients are working. So we'll leave this concept as of now. We do not need to know about what is this, and functional or technical consultants are not expected to do this. There is a separate team which will have to look into this kind of configurations wherein networking is involved. Next, we have description. So description, it's just again for your information thing that why this role is used. So here we will write that this role is used for demo purpose, and this is employee role. Okay, so this is again just FYI, so that if anyone comes into editing this role, he knows that why this role is used or what is this role meant for, right? We'll click on next. We'll go to the next step. Here also, let's go to the next step. Okay, so we are here. Let this one load. Okay, so this one has also loaded now. Here, you are able to see, we'll take example of this absence entry using calendar, and it shows us the description as well. What it says is that it allows the button schedule absence in time work area to be secured, right? So on this page, function security policies, this is nothing but the privileges concept which we discussed a few minutes back. So all this, whatever you are able to see, all these are minute level privileges. So it gives us access to individual tasks. So this one, like all these privileges which you are able to see on screen right now, it is already built into this employee role, the like employee abstract seeded role which we are looking into, which is delivered by Oracle. These privileges are already there in this role. And if I click on load inherited policies, okay, this is taking a lot of time. Okay, till then we'll start understanding the concept. Once we load inherited policies, now we discussed here while we were discussing the concept that we can inherit roles, right? Like this data role has inherited this custom job role. Similarly, we can inherit several roles into this employee role. Now, let's say you have a role built at a minute level. Let's say we call it a demo role 1. So we can inherit the demo role 1 into this employee role. Now in demo role 1, you have given certain privileges, like you can see bank details of employees, you can see their salary details. These two details we have configured it in our demo role 1, but this roles access, it does not imply into employee role, right? Because they won't be able to see salaries and bank details of other employees. But now let's say we are into the line manager role and you want to give access to that bank detail and that payroll salary details to that line manager. So what we can do is, instead of giving individual privileges in that line manager role, like again adding the privilege which will be able, which will make him able to see the bank details of those employees and the salaries of those employees, what we can do is we can directly inherit the demo role 1 into the line manager role, right? So demo role 1, we have already configured it. We have already configured it such a way that the employees who have those roles will be able to see salaries and bank details of employees. In line manager role, we again want the same functionality. So instead of again going and assigning individual privileges, we can just inherit that one demo role and it will be inherited in that line manager role. So employees will be able to access all those things. Okay, I think this has been inherited. Okay. Okay, so until here, okay, it's scrolled again. Yeah. So until here, this privilege name view time by calendar will understand. You will get to know all this. What are the meaning of all these terminologies and all these things once we understand the whole global HR module. But as of now, let's just go for example. View time by calendar. Here in this inherited field row, there is nothing, right? There is nothing written. It is a blank column here in inherited role. But again, if you see excess benefits calculator, you can see that here it is inherited, and then we have this role name called employee enrollment. So do you remember while we were searching employee role, we were also able to see a role called employee enrollment. So here what has happened is that this employee role, it has inherited this employee enrollment role. Now the thing here, like let's say, which scenario was Oracle thinking while inheriting this role? So employee enrollment role, it has access to this excess benefit calculators, right? So employees who are there, who has this employee enrollment role, they would be able to access this something called benefits calculators. Okay, and now Oracle wants that all the employees, like all the users who have employee role, even they should be able to access this benefits calculators. So rather than giving this individual privilege to benefits calculator inside employee role, what they did is they just inherited this employee enrollment, and then all the privileges which were configured inside an employee enrollment role, they were automatically added over here. So if I search, I'll copy this, and if I filter it out, okay, so now I have filtered it out. We are in, remember, we are inside employee abstract role, which is the general employee role, and this is employee enrollment role. So now what I have done is I have filtered out all the privileges which were inherited from employee enrollment. So this is the exact scenario which we discussed as an example, wherein we inherited demo role 1 into our line manager because they have they want access to salaries and bank account details, right? So here the same thing has happened. There is a role called employee enrollment, and it has access to all these benefits calculators, then comparing benefits plan, and then maintaining primary care provider and all those things. Now Oracle wanted that even all the employees should be able to do this. So instead of going and assigning this individual 8 to 9 privileges once again inside employee role, they just inherited this whole role into the employee role, so that all the privileges which were there in employee enrollment role, they are now inside the employee role as well, right? So this is what makes our tasks easy, so that we can directly inherit the roles over here. We'll see how we can inherit the roles. We'll see how we can add these privileges and how we can delete these privileges on a later stage. But right now we are just getting familiarity with all the screens and all the customizations that we are able to see, right? We'll click on next. So this was a page where we can add and delete privileges, individual privileges.
Raj, can I ask one question quickly here?
Yeah, please, please.
So this inherited from role, which role we are talking about here? Duty role or job role? Because there are like abstract job and duty roles. So which role we can inherit it?
Right. So the general practice, we never inherit any abstract roles into other roles, because this is, as we discussed, this is a very high level role. So we never inherit any abstract roles into other roles. What we can inherit is, we can inherit data roles, we can inherit job roles, we can inherit duty roles as well, or we can add individual privileges as well. So except abstract roles, we can inherit all these roles according to our requirements.
Okay, get it.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay. Okay, so till that, okay, this has now loaded. These data security policies will understand the whole concept of data security. The thing which we discussed here, that this A should have access to only India employees, and X should have access to only USA employees. So this is related to the data restriction, right? And data restriction here, we can view, we can create data security policies as well. But this screen, we have a better screen for creating all these data security policies and assigning those data securities. So we implementers generally never follow this thing. We never configure anything on this particular screen, because for data securities, we have a separate screen wherein we can configure all the things that are required much in a much easier way. Right, so we always skip this third train stop in while we are creating a role, or while we are customizing an already existing role. We won't touch data security policies here. Here we just use it to view that what all things are assigned here. So as of now, we'll skip this third train stop, and we'll skip this until we are familiar with all the things that we can do with all the job roles, duty roles, and abstract roles, right? We'll come to data roles on the last stage, because that is, again, we first need to understand what all things can be done with job roles and what all things cannot be done with job roles. So we'll come to this part while we after we complete the job roles. So this is taking unexpectedly longer to load. Okay, so till the time this loads, let's discuss one more concept. Now, let's say you have a line manager role already existing in the system, and you just want to use that role on the go, right? But you want to do a small customization. Let's say line managers, they are able to see salary details of employees who is under him, right? So if A is manager of B and C, then A should see salary details of B and C as well. So this is what line manager seeded is built right now. Now, let's say your client says that A, even if he is a manager of BNC, he should not be able to see salary details. So we are left with no other option but to create a new role, which is exactly same as line manager, minus the privilege to see salary details. The only thing we want to remove is the salary details, right? So now what we do is we do not go into the system and we do not create a new role like we are doing it here from very scratch. What we can do is we can copy this seeded line manager role as it is. So this is not okay. This is now loaded. We'll go with examples itself. Line manager. This I think is stuck somewhere. It's not loading anything. Okay, so anyway, we saw that when line manager, when we selected line manager role, we were able to see that line manager over here. Then there was this arrow mark where we can click on edit role, right, to edit the same role. But the general practice is that we never edit or Oracle seeded roles because what happens is, let's say tomorrow Oracle brings some new updates. So their seeded role, it will be automatically updated. Now, let's say you have customized their Oracle seeded delivered role and you have deleted some privileges or you have added something new. So then when update comes, when Oracle releases its new updates, what will happen is that role will be reset and it will work according to the Oracle's customizations. All our customizations will be vanished, right? So we never edit any seeded role delivered by Oracle. What we do is we copy the seeded line manager role so that a new role is created which is exact same copy of the seeded role, and then after we customize everything like deleting any privileges or adding any new roles or inheriting any new roles inside that copied role, so that the Oracle seeded the delivered role is intact and we are working on our copied role, right? Okay, so let's wait for a minute. If this loads, we'll continue with this. Okay, so you guys understood why we do not edit a seeded Oracle role and why we go and copy a role and then edit it, right? Because the main reason is for Oracle upgrades and updates which they send us so that the roles get automatically updated and our customizations remain intact, and we do not need to like customize each and every time a new upgrade comes, because we discussed that upgrades are quarterly, so we do not need to go and change our roles every 3 months whenever Oracle releases upgrades. Okay. So
Raj, another
yeah,
question is,
yeah.
so after we make customization to that line manager custom role, we have to assign that role back to that Mr. A, right?
Yeah, right.
And we have to take off line manager role, or that has to be still
No,
assigned.
that's correct. No, we have to delete this seeded line manager role from A, and then we'll assign our custom role, right? Because if we
So in
assign
that
both,
case, sorry, in
yeah,
that case, you mentioned that line manager role automatically assigned to Mr. A or to all the line managers. So even if we delete that line manager role and assign custom role, don't you think the very next day, whenever some kind of job will trigger, that line manager will again assign back to Mr. A?
Okay,
So
so we'll come to this point on a later stage, but I'll just give you an overview of how this works. So there are assignment rules in the system, auto provisioning rules. We call it auto provisioning rules. So there we have defined a rule, like there are already seeded defined rules which says that if a person is acting as a manager, then line manager role should be automatically assigned to that manager. Now, what we can do is we can go to that rule and we can change that rule to say that whenever a person is configured as a manager, he or she should be assigned our custom line manager. Or we can altogether delete that role and we can choose to manually go and assign line manager roles to everyone who is required. Right. So there is a provision called auto provisioning rules. So there we can do like manage all these things. But as far as your query is concerned, that what if we delete this line manager role from A, and tomorrow once the system gets refreshed, then a line manager role will be again automatically assigned to A because he is configured as a manager. So again, this we can configure in auto provisioning rules, that what happens if first time the role is assigned, then we delete it, then should it be auto assigned or should it stay deleted? We can even configure this thing in the system.
okay.
Right? Does that answer your query?
Yes, yes, thanks.
Okay. So again, what happens if we keep assigning line manager role as well as our customer line manager role? So this will work with an AND operator, and not OR operator. Okay, so this always works with AND operator. So if we assign line manager role as well as our custom line manager role, then there is no meaning of our custom line manager role, right? Because we have deleted that salary details from custom line manager role, but it's already there in the line manager role. So A will be still able to see, because this works in AND condition, line manager privileges and custom line manager privileges. So he will still be able to see B and C salaries. So what we need to do is we need to delete the line manager role altogether, and we need to assign only the custom line manager role. Okay, so now this was about why we copy the role. Okay, since we are here, I'll just show you an example if this gets selected. Okay, let it load. Okay, so now we are here on our fourth train stop, role hierarchy. We saw the basic information where we enter roles, codes for the names. Then comes the function security policies where we entered privileges, individual privileges. Then we have duty role, data security policies, which I told that we ignore this train stop on this particular screen, because we have a better screen where we can configure data roles and manage this data security policies, right? So next we are into role hierarchy. Okay, so this has now again come to basic information. It will, I think it should. So previously we were on this. Yeah, sorry. Was
So
someone saying?
while this is loading, I wanted to ask about this enable role for access from all IP addresses. Is this something which has been recently been released by Oracle in a latest upgrade or something like that?
Yeah, so this option was not populating before a recent upgrade. This is a new thing which Oracle has provided us.
In this, I think this is on this is the latest upgrade or release, right? That we are on currently. So
Yeah, we are
in
on 21C. Yeah, that is.
20, okay, so in this one they have released. Okay, fine. Because we also have Oracle Fusion. I have this on the screen, so that's why I've asked.
Okay, okay. Yeah, but as I said, this is not important to us from our perspective. We should just skip this, and other team will take care of this, because this belongs to the networking area of Fusion. So
yeah, the reason basically I'm interested in this is because in our company we this Oracle Fusion is on public cloud, right? We can access it from anywhere.
Anyway,
So we wanted to add like a second factor authentication on the Oracle Fusion using one login. And we have some questions raised on that. Basically, it will impact the integrations where we are using the Oracle Fusion URLs. So how can we not impact the integrations and restrict access to Oracle Fusion from other IP addresses? So maybe this option that you have just shown us could be beneficial in that scenario.
Yeah, so this option here was in very particular case for roles only. This does not impact any integrations or anything. But since we were able to see that option on roles, which is newly introduced, now you can also explore if that option has popped up in other places as well, right? So if you want, you can explore that in new features, which I showed yesterday, docs.oracle.com, and there you can see what all things newly introduced in 21C, right?
Yes.
Okay, so now we are on the fourth trend stop, which says role hierarchy. So here we inherit all the roles and we delete anything which is unnecessary. Right now, you see, we are not able to see that plus icon over here. We are not able to add anything or do anything. Even if I select this, we are not able to see that option to delete anything, right? This is because we are into abstract role, and which is a seeded role. We are not allowed to edit this, right? So if I go into this our custom, let's say here you see this option copy role. So what it will do is it will create a copy of this whole role, and then we can edit or create anything that we want on top of this role, right? So we'll move on to the next part. Whenever we complete this understanding of all the train stops here, then we will copy a role, we'll delete some privileges, we'll add some privileges, then we'll also inherit some roles. At that time, we'll see how we can see here add buttons and delete buttons. But as of now, let's just understand this thing. Next is segregation of duties. So what is says here is that if role combinations appear here, they violate provisioning rules. Change your role hierarchy to eliminate one role in each pair. So here what it says is this is a tool for analyzing. Now here, let's say we have this data role India and data role USA, which is ideally meant to segregate data of India and USA. But let's say if there is some conflict, if you have inherited India role here, and if you have also inherited USA role here, so it will say us that there is a conflict in data securities and we need to change it, right? Because if you are inheriting both the roles inside the same role, then there is no meaning. So there is a conflict which arises over here. So that is what we'll be able to see here. Now, if we click on next, okay, this is still not loaded. Okay, so one important thing, if you are completely new to the system, we never use this back option of browser, and we very less frequently we use this refresh button. If you click on this back icon, and if you think that it will navigate us to the previous screen which we were on, then it won't navigate us to the previous screen. It will just navigate us to the home page, because this is a browser back option and not Oracle back option. So if you want to navigate to any previous screen, if you are able to see a back icon inside our Fusion system, then that can navigate you to the previous page, but not the browser back page. And refresh, a browser refresh, that is what we call hard refresh. We use it when the system is stuck and not every time when we want to refresh. Now, this screen does not have a refresh button, but let's say if you are running some process and if you want to check its what is its progress, then you will be able to see a separate refresh button inside Fusion. So we use that refresh button instead of this browser hard refresh button. Okay.
Also, in the future sessions, while we are on each topic, are you going to give us the tables, like important tables for each topic? Let's say if I want to make some queries on the security, all the tables involved in this security administration.
So tables and queries, we are not going to discuss it when we are discussing the functional part, but when we come to the technical part, there we'll discuss about all the tables and how we can build queries, right? Because here, if we go along with the tables, then it will like create a mess over here, because we first need to understand the functional concepts in depth, and only then you'll be able to build queries. Even if you know tables, even if you know SQL at a good level, you won't still be able to build queries because you don't know the concepts of the functional part. So that is why we'll take all these tables and queries while we are discussing the technical parts.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so we are on the sixth train stop of creating a role or viewing or editing a role, and this is called users. Now here, this employee role, to which users is this assigned? It shows us here that all these users which you are able to see, they have employee role in the system. Okay, here again, while we'll be creating a role or we'll be editing a duplicate role, we'll be able to see a button where we can add users over here. So we can directly add users and they will be assigned to this role. Or the next an alternative to assigning roles to employee is that we go to this users tab inside security console, we search for our employee here, we open that employee. So I think we are running out of time right now. But if we open this employee, yesterday we saw the screen how it looks like. We created the user called Rakesh, and then we were having a roles separate section below that where we added the employee role. So you can go into this user, you will be able to see the same interface which we saw yesterday. There will be a button to add role where we can add or delete any role. So that is one way to do. The other way is you come inside that role, you come to train stop 6, and then you add users there directly. Okay. So now when you click next, we are on the last stop of role creation, which is summary. Here we will be able to see all the summary of what all things we have edited. Let's say if we have deleted a functional security policy, it will say that functional security policies, and it will say that removed, and in this bracket instead of 0 it should show us as 1, because we have removed one policy. Similarly, if we have made any changes to any of this, it will be displayed over here just for our confirmation. If you expand this, you'll be also able to see the details, what you have added or what you have removed. Okay, right now it is all 0 because we have not made any changes, and we are not allowed to make any changes in the employee abstract role, right? So once this is done, once you have like rechecked that what all things you need to be added and what all things to be removed are correct, then we can click on save and close, and that role will be created. I'm right now clicking on cancel because there is no meaning to click on save and close because we haven't edited anything. So this will take us back to that screen, this screen where we'll be on the roles section, and then you can like go ahead and navigate to other things. So you see we are on the home screen of roles, and here again we'll get option to edit role, to copy role, to compare roles, and to simulate navigator. Now today we have discussed this edit role. Tomorrow we'll start with copy role, then we'll see compare roles and simulate navigator. Okay, so I think that's all for see. Yeah, this has loaded. So we are into John Adam. Now what we can do is we can edit here, and we can either reset the password or we can edit the account. So if we click on edit, okay, so here we are able to see this option called add role. So we can add roles from here as well. and we can add role from here as well. So if I want to assign employee role to this this particular user John Adams, I can go in edit roles. I can go to the sixth train stop where users were displayed, and I can add a user there as well. And we can add a role to users individually from here as well. It depends on our comfort level. If you want to assign a single role like employee role to a lot of users, then I think this method would be preferable. But if you want to assign a particular individual some roles, then I think this method should be more preferable, right? So all you can do is here, and about this auto provision rules, we discussed it a few minutes back, how we can create like what is the impact of creating this provision rules and all. We'll see it in depth at a later stage. And remove all roles, it will simply delete all these roles. You can either individually delete roles or you can choose to remove all the roles, right? Then we click on save and close and the role will be assigned. So I think we shall end today's session now. If you guys have any doubts, we can take doubts or questions right now.
So Raj, another question I have, like these privileges that we have shown, functional security policies, where all the privileges are listed. Let's say if I am in like that page where you were showing like hire a new employee,
Okay.
how can I identify from that page what privilege will give access to that hire a new employee?
Right. So Oracle has built a beautiful tool to do that, because you see, Fusion is a huge system. We have a lot of things going on in Fusion, and how can we identify a single privilege for that particular button or for that particular screen? So for that, we are going to discuss it tomorrow. We have this option called Simulate Navigator, where we will be able to see that what all things employee abstract role will have access to without even going to that page. So we'll discuss this thing tomorrow. It is and indeed a beautiful tool which Oracle has created, and this has eased the implementers burden by a lot of percentage. So we'll discuss this Simulate Navigator tomorrow.
Okay.
Anything else? Anyone else who has any questions or who has any doubts, even in previous sessions? All right, guys. So I think I'll take it as a no, and we'll end the session then.
One last thing, Raj. So how this course will follow? Shall we start with this functional part first or technical part first? It's functional first, right?
Yeah, it's always functional first, because to gain knowledge of technical, we first need to understand the functional part, or at least the very basics of functional. So we'll go with functional first and then technical.
Okay.
All right, guys. So let's end today's session. We'll meet tomorrow again at the same time, and we'll continue with these options tomorrow. All right.
Thanks, Raj.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye, guys.